Hi, I'm Jim Luff, Marketing Manager for Chosen Payments. It's with great privilege and honor to introduce you to Aurora Payments CEO Brian Goudie. Before we learn more about Brian, I want to clarify that while Brian might be a new face to you, Brian has been the CEO of Aurora Payments, the parent company of Chosen Payments, since 2018, when Aurora acquired Chosen Payments. Without further ado, welcome to the podcast, Brian.
Jim, thanks so much. Excited to be here today. And as you said, maybe there's some folks who aren't familiar with my name, and hopefully I won't be such a stranger to those folks as we move forward. And it's great to be here with you today.
Well, we certainly know that our clients are eager to learn more about you, Brian. So perhaps you can start by sharing how you got in the payments business.
It is a crazy business. And I always love to ask people, how did you ever get into this crazy payments business? And there's always some great stories there. And for me, I was in Boston, Mass, where I grew up in Massachusetts. And I had a buddy of mine who worked for Diners Club at that time. And he ran around Boston setting up restaurants to be able to take Diners Club corporate cards. And he said to me, I know of this company called First Data, and they're going to do an alliance with a bank in Charlotte, North Carolina called Wachovia. And they're going to form called Wachovia Merchant Services. And of course, being a dummy like I was in my 20s, I said, boy, that sounds great. I've never heard of either one of those companies. So this must be the opportunity of a lifetime. And my fiance at the time and we drove down, relocated to Charlotte, North Carolina. And I started out as an account executive with the Wachovia Bank Alliance with First Data, setting up small merchants, restaurants, retailers for credit card payments, albeit it was a little different in 1996 than it is today. But that's how I started.
Wow. And so you probably learned a lot working at Wachovia and cutting your teeth. Would that be fair to say?
I definitely got trained on the payments industry. There's probably no better place than a place like First Data with the resources they have. But I guess the reality is where I really learned a lot about payments was in 1990, really in 1998, I had been recruited by what was then the largest independent sales organization in the United States, a company called Card Service International, ironically based in Calabasas, California, right down the road from where Aurora Payments and Chosen Payments are today. And they kept recruiting me, and I thought, I'm in this bank environment. This is where I want to be. This is payments here at Wachovia. But these guys, there's a good buddy of mine named Steve Duniak, who's a vice president. He said, Brian, you just need to trust me. And there are some people, Jim, I hope you've met in your life where that statement is more meaningful than a legal agreement or compensation because they would never steer you wrong. And I blindly said, all right, Steve, I know you guys, have wanted me to join Card Service International and I'm going to do it. And in January of 1999, I landed in LAX, went to Woodland Hills. They had a big conference my first day. And I learned more in 3 years at Card Service International than perhaps my entire career. And the reason for that is Card Service was a home for entrepreneurs, 1099 agents and merchant level salespeople who wanted to run their own business. And when you run your own business and put your money and blood, sweat, and tears into it, it's a high risk game. You're really putting all your chips in the middle of the table, and you learn what scrappiness is and resilience and really what the American dream is as a small business. In the bank, not to knock the bank side, but when you work for a bank, it's very insular and parochial. You kind of know what's going on with that bank culture, but you don't really know the landscape of what small business America is. And Card Service is what really taught me that. And I thought I was crazy for making that move. Probably like a lot of people, the move you think is craziest turns out to be the best.
Well, honestly, just hearing that you packed up from Boston and moved out to LA, that's a pretty dramatic move for sure.
Well, listen, much to the chagrin, Jim, of probably a lot of people here, I've never left my Patriots, Red Sox, Celtics card. It doesn't matter where I live. So I'm sure there's a lot of Patriot haters. So I apologize for that.
Well, and I also know when I call you on your cell phone that you maintain that Boston number. So you're maintaining the connection with it. And today you live in Arizona, correct?
I do. We, as part of Aurora's strategy, and this kind of gets into the background of Aurora. Aurora is an amalgamation of several different fintech companies And I left First Data after 21 years. I worked for First Data Corporation, had a lot of jobs there. I guess the biggest job I had, I ran their North American acquiring division from 2012 to 2014. But when I left First Data after 21 years, I had an opportunity to come over to be the CEO at Aurora. And part of Aurora's strategy is acquisition of other fintech companies, Chosen Payments being one of them. Actually, when I first got here, was one of the businesses I targeted. I knew Jeff Brodsly from my previous life and loved what Jeff had created at Chosen, with their direction around associations and software partners and white glove service and all the things a lot of people on this podcast will be able to identify with is what I loved about Jeff and his business. So we acquired Chosen. Another business we acquired was in Scottsdale, Arizona. And I was living in Atlanta at the time and commuting back to our California office and Arizona office. And we had an opportunity to expand in Arizona over in Tempe, not far from Arizona State University. And when we did that, I made the decision to move from Atlanta to Phoenix, which I could probably be a member of the Phoenix Chamber of Commerce. I really don't have anything bad to say about Phoenix. It's a phenomenal place to live. If anybody has or is thinking about it, I would give it high grades. But yeah, I moved out here November 1st of 2018 when we opened up our new building in Tempe, Arizona, and have not regretted that one day.
You talked about your position with First Data in 2012 to 2014. That sounded pretty impressive to be in charge of that acquiring division. What are some of the other career highlights that you've experienced since getting into payments processing?
Well, I mean, I'm definitely not a rear view mirror guy. I'm much more of a windshield guy, and I don't sit there. And somebody asked me the other day for a resume and my highlights, and I was like, I don't have that. They asked me what articles I've written, and I was like, you Google my name, you're going to find a lot. But I don't keep a journal of those kinds of things, right? I really want to look forward to today and tomorrow because that's the opportunity we all have. But if I do look back in 25 years in payments, I think the thing I'm probably most proud of personally is that I was a kid who left Boston, Mass to become a sales rep for a bank. I started out as an account executive walking around the streets of Charlotte, Raleigh, Chapel Hill, and Durham. I ended up moving up to the Raleigh, Chapel Hill, Durham area and just meeting with business owners every day. And from there, I reported directly to the CEO of a Fortune 250 company with 23,000 employees running their North American acquiring business. There weren't a lot of people at that boardroom that had my pedigree, and probably for good reason. I don't know if I'd want to hire everybody with my pedigree, but I'm proud of that, right? I probably overcame a lot of obstacles. Hopefully, I helped a lot of people along the way. And then, so what are the highlights? I go to what's most gratifying, and what's most gratifying to me is personally, I've got 5 kids. That I don't take lightly the fact that a company like First Data gave me that opportunity. Now, I seized the opportunity, but without First Data, I wouldn't have had that opportunity to, give my kids hopefully a better life maybe than I had. And so many people around me, Jim, running big sales organizations, whether they're people like Jeff Brodsly. I can tell you I'm friends with probably 500 Jeff Brodslys. And when they call me and say, hey, I bought my first house, or we're having our first kid, I want to let you know. To me, that's actually probably the most gratifying thing, is to see these sort of landmark moments for people who I know, or either fellow employees of mine, or third-party partners of mine, or banks that we do business with. It's gratifying to see other people succeeding and want to share that success with you, because maybe I had some small part along the way for them. That's what I would take away from my career.
I love it. And I think that we are in a unique position in our industry to help the merchants that we serve in many different ways. I'm currently working with one of our merchants who had a chargeback yesterday, or was notified of the chargeback. And one of the things that I take great pride in is when I'm asked to help a merchant with a chargeback and we successfully win that for them. And by the way, Brian, my record on wins is 9 out of every 10 that I help a merchant with, we successfully win. So, it does feel good to be able to, especially with a smaller merchant who really doesn't have advocates for them. They don't have the resources of a big corporation or having a corporate attorney in their pocket to scare someone or whatever. So I really feel like we do a lot to help our merchants in terms of chargeback assistance and providing a ton of education for them via our newsletter, via in-person seminars at trade shows that really do help people get a handle on their finances. And I mean, if we really look at it, the majority of transactions today are done by credit card or debit card. So we're a vital component for the merchants that we served. Speaking of, what differentiates ourselves from the competition, what's your view on that? How do you see us being different than our competition?
Well, from an Aurora Chosen perspective, what we tried to create was an agnostic ecosystem for distribution partners and merchants to help grow their businesses in. And what that means, in layman's terms, is there's 4 or 5 big mega processing companies in this country today. There used to be a lot more, but there's been a lot of consolidation. Fiserv and First Data consolidated, Global and TSYS consolidated. We could put business on TSYS, we can put business on First Data, we could put business on Elevon. We have multiple sponsor banks, Wells Fargo, BBVA, Evolve Bank. Essentially what we try to create from a platform perspective is an agnostic ecosystem where there's no one vendor that's going to tell Aurora Chosen, you have to do business a certain way. For merchants, that gives them flexibility, to basically have their business put in a place where they can thrive. And, I think it's you talked about small business, and my sister runs 2 restaurants big restaurants in Charlotte, North Carolina. My sister runs jewelry store in Tarrytown, New York. The other day I was at a place called Mike's Crazy Wings here in Goodyear, Arizona, setting them up with their clovers and their kitchen printers with one of my tech guys. And we left very excited because we knew Mike's opening Saturday and we've got his clover system set up. To me, it's my job as the CEO of this company we've got a great operational platform, but we need to expand our technology. You said that credit and debit cards run Small Business America. That's true. But I think alternative forms of payment, whether that's ACH, person-to-person payments, things like Venmo and Zelle, there are a lot of ways that people are going to be you got cryptocurrency, right? Everybody's wondering, is Bitcoin? Can I pay with Bitcoin, right? 5 years from now, it's going to be a different conversation about how people barter and trade. And it's our job to help out our existing clients and potential clients to make sure we have the technology that's going to help them grow their business. At the end of the day, that's what we should all be thinking about. And it's what I think about every day.
Well, on that note, why don't we roll right into what you see on the horizon for us, if you want to share your vision?
Yeah, so
what's coming?
We built out an operational system, proprietary. We have a group of developers in Ukraine today. We have 20 developers, and they've been building out our how we board merchants, how we underwrite merchants, how we support the merchants at the operational platform, and how we pay partners. That was a heavy lift. That was about 14 months and counting to get that done. Now, our collective next goal, I think, is to create first of all, to either buy or build our own payment gateway. By doing that, what it allows us to do is work with developers who are creating really cool software out there today to help merchants, again, grow their businesses and integrate directly into Chosen or integrate directly into Aurora Payments. The very reason why we built this ERP system was we wanted to control our own destiny and not rely on third parties. The reason I wanted to build our own payment gateway or buy a payment gateway, same thing. If I get we play in a lot of different verticals. We play in livery, we play in funeral, we play in jewelry, we play in booksellers. If I had a funeral software company come and say, hey, if you could integrate my software, but I need it to do sort of X and Y. It doesn't do that today. If I go to a third-party gateway company and say, I need to have this development done, it may or may not be that important to them. But if it's our gateway and we own it, we can iterate that gateway however we want to satisfy our small business clients. And that, for me, is the next step, is to control our own destiny on our SMB technology.
Wow, that sounds very exciting. So that's looking forward. Let's take a look. Let's take a look over your shoulder. You said something that you about how different the business is today than when you joined in the early '90s. What's a major difference that you can share with us?
Well, if you're a merchant out there, I can tell you in 1996 when I was selling between Visa and MasterCard, there may have been 20 different kinds of cards out in the market. Interchange types is what they call it. And if you look at the Visa MasterCard interchange grids today, there's probably over 200, different kinds of interchange costs. Depending on what kind of card is presented to a merchant, there's a different cost to it. That's a big difference. It's become much more complex at the card brand level. But I think the most important and material difference that I've seen, I'm not going to attribute this to Jack Dorsey from Square, but a lot of people know Square. I've told this story many times. I was at the Central U.S. Acquirers Association meeting around 2011, maybe in 2010-11. And a guy named Jack Dorsey was going to be the keynote speaker. And at that time, he was introduced as the founder of Twitter, or co-founder of Twitter, that was going to start this company called Square. And he basically got on stage and insulted everybody in the audience by saying that payments lacks transparency, it lacks vision. It's a kind of a staid industry where everybody's still working on these black little boxes called credit card terminals on their desks that don't do anything beyond take a credit card transaction. And I don't know that he made a lot of friends, but the reality is that when Square showed up and other companies like that, and Palo Alto and Silicon Valley money started pouring into payments, really around 2012 to 14, there's been a really, really meaningful shift. When I was selling, the only thing I had to worry about is putting a credit card device on a restaurant's table that maybe had a better cost to it and was reliable. It got the money to the person's bank. Today, it's really our job to look at somebody's inventory and how they do inventory. How do they market? How do they run a proprietary gift card program? It's not good enough necessarily to just run credit and debit card transactions. Small businesses need us to be an advocate across all parts of their business. And that to me is the biggest change. The really good salespeople out there today aren't just selling payments. They're asking a merchant, how can I help you run your business better? And solutioning that with a great product. We really didn't have tons of solutions back then. There were a couple equipment hardware companies, Hypercom, Verifone, and not a lot else. I mean, that was kind of what people were selling back then. So there's a lot more option and we can do more for a business owner than we could then.
Wow, it's probably been fascinating for you to watch that evolve throughout your career. As we begin to wrap this up, let's get to the personal side of Brian Goudie now. I won't get too deep, but I'm sure that people want to know a little bit more about you. Are you married? Do you have kids? Do you have hobbies? What do you want to share with us today?
Well, I tell everybody I work half days, so 7 in the morning to 7 at night. So in my free time, I do have 5 kids. I am married. I'm living in Phoenix now, as I said, originally from Boston. I love music and I love sports, no doubt. So if I get a chance to relax, I have seen U2 38 times, so people think I'm insane. But when you're an Irish Catholic kid from Boston, it's sort of like going to church is going to see U2. It's sort of the same thing. But love music, love sports, love fitness. I try to run and get to the gym still as often as I can to keep a healthy body. If I can't have a healthy mind, I'll go for 1 out of 2. I got to have at least a healthy body. But that's really it, and traveling, spending time with my kids, and that's a pretty good day.
That sounds great. I have one more question to ask you, just because it's a personal tidbit that I happen to know about you that I find fascinating. How many siblings do you have?
Yeah, I might take this one further. I don't know if you know this, Jim, but I'm actually one of 9 kids. I was the 7th kid. My mom raised the 9 of us, about an hour and 20 minutes outside of Boston. For the most part, we've all turned out okay. I'm a little worried about a couple of my brothers, but we didn't do too bad. But my wife is actually the 15th of 15 kids. So combined, wow, we've got 24 siblings between the 2 of us. So I'm not even like top dog, Jim, in my own house. She's like 9. That's it. Come on.
I thought that 9 was pretty phenomenal. I raised 4 kids of my own, and I now have 10 grandkids. But I really thought a house that had 6 people living in it was a crowded house. And when you and I were talking one day and you shared with me how many siblings you had, I thought, boy, what a chaotic house that must have been to grow up in.
It
So,
was, but the good thing, Jim, is when you're a kid, kids are so malleable, and if you don't really have anything to compare anything to, you don't know any. I thought we were the richest family in the world. And then I had the privilege of going to boarding school in New Hampshire my junior and senior year. And that's the day when I landed at Kimball Union Academy in Meriden, New Hampshire, was the day I realized we were not all that rich as I thought we were. I saw what real wealth was when I went to boarding school, but we didn't know. We thought we were 9 kids having the greatest life, and we probably were.
Well, Brian, I certainly want to thank you for your time today. And on behalf of Chosen Payments, powered by Aurora, I'd like to thank you for listening to this podcast, introducing Brian Goudie, our CEO. While we have a new CEO, you can continue to expect the same white glove service that you've come to know. You can expect our continued support in the many industries that we serve. And most importantly, you can expect us to continue growing and expanding as we have done since being acquired by Aurora in 2018. Brian, thanks for being with us, and I'll let you have the closing comments.
Thank you, Jim, and thanks to everybody listening who's a existing partner of the Aurora Chosen family. And if you're not an existing partner of the Aurora Chosen family, we'd love to have a consultative conversation with you and see if we can help you grow your business. And again, thank you, Jim. Appreciate the time today. On 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 today.